Okay, welcome to this day podcast, where we'll be looking at the big existential questions of life. Who am I? Where am I going? Where did I come from? And other big questions like that. And Mike is with me here, and I'm Seamus. And today we're going to be looking at a very big subject: evolution versus our creation. Did we evolve by chance, or were we created on purpose? And I suppose the question is, if life is the product of random evolution, why does the universe look like it was designed? We'll be considering that, and today on the podcast, and we'll be challenging assumptions that are held, I suppose, out there by most people, and exploring the scientific case for creation, particularly. And so that's really going to be the subject today. I want to bring in Mike here now, and Mike is going to give us some ideas about some of these issues. And is there a case to be made, Mike, still for creation in an age dominated by evolution?
I think there is, Seamus, because science, for instance, is contrary to what many people believe. Anyway, is it doesn't exclude God, and indeed the case that can be made for creation and indeed intelligent design far exceeds anything that can be made for a case for evolution. And indeed the term theory or scientific theory is a misnomer in itself, because one of the basic tenets of science is the fact that you have to have evidence, you have to have observable facts, and these facts have to be able to be tested. And if you have no evidence, you can't test any of the facts in the first place, so it remains a theory. And a theory it is to this day, and theory by definition also is just man's guesses as to how life came to be. And when a creator and a super intelligent designer is excluded, then these scientists have to look elsewhere for this explanation. And so the theory to this day still remains a theory.
Just to interrupt there for a sec, I suppose just to qualify the terms for creation and evolution, it might be a very... most people understand it, but just for those that might be a bit hazy on that, creationists, people that believe that the world came into being by creation, look at the Bible, what it says about it. And the Bible says in the very first verse in the Bible, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, says, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." And straight away you see that's what the people that believe in creation believe. And then evolutionists believe, on the other hand, that it was the same world and earth and universe that we look and admire so much was created over millions of years. And that's backed up by people like David Attenborough, who's known to most people, a fantastic photographer and biologist, and he's done television programs all over the world on the wonders of creation. And he has taught the idea of evolution religiously, I suppose, for decades now. And he's an old man now. And it's actually still taught in our schools. And, that's... So what you were just after saying there, it's a theory, and it's still accepted as fact in our schools. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
It is, James. But, whilst David Attenborough is a confirmed evolutionist, he's... quickly becoming part of the minority, because in the Discovery Institute there in America, 600 scientists signed a dissent form disassociating themselves from evolution.
Wow.
And,
that's big.
It is, And then in 2019, that figure increased to no less than 1,000. So in 2025, which we're in today, that figure could be anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 and increasing.
Really.
And so that is interesting in itself, because these are realizing that after 150 years of fruitless evidence, they just have to realize that there's no proof that they can stand upon regarding evolution. And it's also worth noting that infamous scientists from the fields of biology and botany and chemistry and physics and medicine and astronomy. People I'm thinking of like Newton, Kepler, Boyle, Faraday, Fleming, and Louis Pasteur, as we
They're all
all
very-
have heard of.
They're like household names. some
Yeah,
of those.
they are indeed.
Yeah.
And they're all creationists, and they haven't lost any credibility in the centuries since.
Most of the theory of evolution has come from mainly from a man called Charles Darwin. And I was at something recently, and this man was giving a lecture on where we came from as a race of people, and he started off, put up a picture of Charles Darwin and asked people, did they know who he was? Most people didn't really know who he was, and but it was him all right. And I just wonder, Mike, have you? It was said, I've heard that Darwin actually had doubts himself about his theory of evolution.
Yeah, in actual fact, he was plagued with doubts about his own theories, and I'll just quote some of his own.
Oh, it's interesting.
Quotes there regarding his theory. And this is Darwin now himself speaking. He says, just to think about the eye alone and how it could possibly have been produced by natural selection is enough to make me ill. And that he hadn't even touched on the brain at that stage, which
Some
was
statement. Yeah.
infinitely more complex, isn't it? And, then he says, he only knew at that stage about the basic parts of the eye, like the eyelids, the tear ducts, the retina, and the optic nerve and that. But
So all the information was available at that time.
it was very, very basic. But he had no idea or comprehension of the fact that attaching the retina to the brain, there's 110 million optic nerves, which are invisible to the naked eye.
Mind-boggling.
And so he wouldn't have been aware of them at that stage.
Yeah.
But he then went on to say, my ideas, and this is another quote from Darwin himself, my ideas of evolution are entirely based on speculation. Now that's incredible that he could say that.
Incredible, isn't it?
And it runs beyond the boundary of true science.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even, he realised it wasn't even science at all, his theory. And so man needs to think for themselves and, not accept something that has no proof to back it up. And that's what they're doing. But more and more now today, you'll see people are beginning to question these things.
We're in the age of that now.
Yeah.
Aren't we? Imagine the hordes and millions of people, probably, maybe not millions, but vast numbers of people have been have imbibed his teaching as fact. The theory of evolution as something that's actually fact. And people might think the majority must be right.
That's right.
History has proven over and over that the majority are not right, and a lot of the time they're wrong.
Actually, just on that point, that's an interesting point to bring up because, Deepak Chopra is an Indian psychologist, and Richard Dawkins said of him, he says, he speaks in very complicated language, and people say, oh, well, because I don't understand it, therefore it must be true. And, these people in white coats think they know it all, but they actually don't know anything in relation to how things came about because they're still theories. But Darwin also said, interestingly, that my theory is just a mere rag of an hypothesis with as many flaws and holes as it has parts. And yet, as you said, James, it's now being still taught in schools and third-level education. If I could give a few other people to complement what Darwin is saying, we have this biochemist Ernest Chain. Now, you mightn't be aware of Ernest Chain, but
I haven't actually heard of him, no.
Yeah, but you will be aware that of Alexander Fleming.
Yeah, heard of him, all right. Yeah.
And the both of them actually were responsible for penicillin and antibiotics, and won the Nobel Prize for it. So Fleming would be more known than Ernest Chain. But Ernest Chain said about evolution, he said, I would rather believe in fairies than in such wild, fanciful theories. Now, Louis Bonheur, a French biologist, he also saw it as a fairy tale. He said, evolution was a fairy tale for grown-ups and has done nothing to further science and is useless.
Right. So much for evolution.
Yeah. Dawkins now
Yeah,
would
what
be...
about him, Dawkins? He's a man that's very much in over the years I've heard quite a bit
Yeah,
about it.
he'd be the main, promoter of evolution at this stage.
Where does he come in?
But interesting now enough that you mentioned him, James, because he was giving a lecture there to a hall of students, university students there many years ago, and one of them asked, can you give as an example of a genetic mutation where it can be shown to have added information now to the genome or the human cell.
They're getting beyond me here now, Mike.
But and beyond myself, to be honest with you. But
go ahead. No, you're going well.
he had to take 5 minutes out and ask for the television cameras to be turned off before he could answer that. And of course, he wasn't able to answer it.
Oh.
And I'll bring that in maybe later. But other eminent scientists, such as A. Kaufman, said not a single fact to confirm it. It's just purely a result of man's imagination, and it's not based on scientific research. And one actually, the physicist that I have read many books on him is Dr. Sarfati, who's an Indian creationist. He said Darwinism is just propaganda to dispense with a creator God and is dead on the starting block.
That's a good quotation.
To end of quote,
Yeah, man knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. And it's also worth noting, James, really, that evolution has no brain, remember.
Yeah.
And, it has no, what would you say, no designer as well.
Yeah.
And because it has no brain and no designer, therefore it cannot set a specific goal to work towards. And indeed, evolution has not been observed in the past, and it's not been even observed today, to this very day. And so...
What do you mean by that now exactly, Mike?
Well, I thought of the example of a bird, for instance. A bird can fly from practically the day it's born, till it's kicked out of the nest.
Absolutely, yeah. I was just watching a nature program of owlets coming out of the nest recently.
Right, yeah.
And they just hover on the end of the nest, and next thing, off they go.
Off they go, yeah. So, but man with a bird is a pea-sized brain, but man with an infinitely more complex brain and bigger brain, and can create things such as complex musical instruments, create beautiful symphonies and poetry and appreciate them. And yet his one desire is to be able to fly, and he hasn't been able to evolve.
Superman can
But he hasn't been able to evolve flight where he can fly unaided himself, even though it's his greatest desire to do so.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was another interesting fact there.
Oh, very good, interesting.
The whole idea of creationists, we accept a compelling argument for a super intelligent creator who is God and is omniscient, who we believe is therefore all-knowing, and he's capable of beautiful design and beauty and order, and indeed creation itself. And you just have to look around yourself when you go out.
Go for a walk in the woods.
Absolutely. Or if you look up at the Alps and the snow-capped peaks and so on. And therefore, by definition, you cannot... creation or evolution cannot be the result of random, unintelligent, mindless, unguided processes.
It absolutely flies in the face of logic and intelligence, and
anything that's rational.
And it's like, again, I've said it early on. It's hard to understand how intelligent, educated people, accept this as fact. And they question other things out and out.
I think probably you've hit on a good point there, James, because these are really intelligent people, and you have physicists and astronomers, and biologists by the new time, and yet they're accepting this. But the reason they have to is because they're denying that there's a creator God.
Yeah.
So they have to look for something else.
That's
and
the
that's where they've
underlying
gone
reason.
wrong.
Yeah.
And an interesting one that you might find interesting is John Lennox. You know, he's
he's an Irishman, isn't he?
He is actually,
North of Ireland.
He's a professor of mathematics in Oxford University.
Right.
But he's
Actually, I think I've seen him on BBC a few times, having university debates, and I think he's very much into that.
That's right.
He?
Yeah, he's probably the foremost apologist for creationism today.
Right, okay.
And interesting, Richard Dawkins refuses to debate with them anymore because he's lost every debate.
Aye.
So that says something about evolution, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And
John Lennox, that's his name.
Yeah, John Lennox. You know, he was in I remember seeing one of his own podcasts recently, but he was in a lecture with scientists recently. I'm not sure how recently, but he was asking them to explain about the brain. And they all came to the conclusion that the brain is the most complex organism in the whole universe. But it's the result of mindless, and I'm just quoting there now, mindless, unintelligent, unguided, random processes of cells coming together by chance over billions of years. And then he asked them a very probing question. He says, and you trust it? And why would you believe anything that it tells you if that's the case? And then he went on to say, well, let me give an example. If you knew your computer that you have in front of you came from mindless, unintelligent, random processes, would you trust your computer? Yeah. And every one of them says, no, they wouldn't. And yet, they came to such conclusions. And, such conclusions by intelligent men, evolutionists like that, it undermines rationality.
Absolutely.
And it's nothing really, James, other than
willful. It's an insult to our to people's intelligence.
It really is,
and
it's it's nothing but willful ignorance in the extreme, and it verifies Scripture, because Scripture, and I'll quote from Romans 1:18, it says, "Men suppress the truth in unrighteousness." And then a few verses later, in verse 25, it says, "Man has exchanged the truth of God for a lie." And then in Psalm 14:1, it says, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God.
Yeah, that's a great verse.
Yeah. And the Greek word for fool is ignoramus. Oh, wow. And really, that's what they're attributing to themselves. I haven't got the verse in my head, but it just occurs to me now. In the Old Testament, there's a verse that says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Yeah, very good.
God is talking about his own people, the Israelites at the time.
Yeah,
you could say that nowadays. That, and this is what we're about on this podcast: is promoting the Bible. It would be, as we go along, because the Bible has the truth about life and all these things we're talking about, and we have to have knowledge of the Bible in order to get.
Because when
sense about these things.
You do, because when Romans 1:25 says, man has exchanged the truth of God for a lie. Jesus himself said in John 8, he says, Satan is the father of lies. And so that's, pointing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting. Amazing to see what all these men have said, and also the scientists now. There's a swing back towards people using their brains a bit and starting to
it's great to
think
see
about it. Yeah. That's positive, and kind of it's a good sign, hopefully. And but just to carry on our discussion about evolution and creation, and one of the big arguments I think against evolution is a concept called irreducible complexity. Somewhat abstract term, I suppose, but I had to look up in the dictionary what it meant really. So what would you say, Mike, to that? What does it mean to say that something is irreducibly complex?
Yes, it does sound a very difficult term.
Grandiose kind
Yeah,
of. Yeah.
forms.
Yeah.
But it's what it's the term that scientists use, so we just have to address it. But in simple terms, what it does mean is that any system to function, it must have all its constituent and interconnecting parts present at the same time.
Same time, okay.
And in other words, if even one of those constituent parts are missing, the object won't work at all. Okay. And so it's worth repeating that, to function, it must have all the constituent and interconnecting parts present and working in order to function properly at the same time.
I think you have a good example for that. Maybe you have a number of them, but what about the human eye? I think I heard you talking about that one time.
Yeah, well, just before that, it shows also that things can't happen on a gradual basis.
All right. Yeah. Which is what evolution teaches.
Which is what evolution teaches. So if all of these parts have to come together at the same time rather than on a gradual basis.
Exactly,
and that brings me to the point that you've just raised there, Seamus, there on the eye, because the eye, as you know, consists of the pupil, which lets in light, and if the room is dark, it'll grow bigger to let in more light. If it's too bright, it'll restrict itself and get smaller. So there's not too much light hitting the eye, and so it grows smaller. Otherwise, you could go blind. Then you have the soft lens, which focuses on the retina.
Yeah.
But the most complex of all is the retina, which attaches the optic nerve to the brain itself.
All right.
And that I might have alluded to earlier on, but there's in Darwin, but it's 110 million rods that are so minute you can't see them without a very powerful microscope.
Wow.
And so these are attached to the brain. But then there's also tear ducts to lubricate the eye. And then we're all familiar with eyelashes, and they're to protect the eye against dust. Now, I know, and if you have one speck of dust in your eye, it's just so irritating. But if you had no eyelashes at all, you'd be getting dust in all of the day, and you just wouldn't be able to see. So isn't it? Yeah, because
the complexity of that.
And
that's where the word comes from.
Exactly.
That's irreducible. The complexity.
Yeah. So it shows that all of these functions have to be there at the same time. If that
begs a creator, doesn't it?
It does, because if the pupil was lying there for a million years, what's the point of it? There's no function whatsoever, and would have long since decayed anyway.
Absolutely.
And then these 110 million rods and so on. So we can see there from the eye itself that all of these attributes of the eye have to be there at the same time. They couldn't have evolved bit by bit, step by step over millions of years. Yeah. And he also mentioned, that was Michael Behe that brought about those examples as well, because he wrote in his famous book, the Black Box, or Darwin's Black Box it's called. And he's now a famous biochemist, and he's a supporter of intelligent design. And he said that biology at the molecular level has paralyzed science. In other words, they've no answer. And he then went on to say that, about the eye, of course, but he also mentioned another interesting aspect about blood clotting.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I heard somebody talking about that one time in connection with this debate and blood clotting. Yeah, so what's
that was in Michael Behe's book, Darwin's Black Box, as well, because you have four main attributes of blood. You have red blood cells, you have white blood cells, you have the plasmin, you have the platelets, and of course the red blood cells bring oxygen and carbon dioxide around the body. Then the white blood cells, they're protecting the body. It has full of are necessary for the immune system to work.
Right.
Then plasma carries the nutrients around the body, and then the
I think you should be a doctor.
Oh, no way. These are just Michael Behe's points, not mine.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
But the platelets themselves are responsible for blood clotting.
Yeah.
And if you cut yourself and you can't stop the blood, you'll soon bleed to death.
Right.
So all of these attributes had to be there together at the same time.
Well, that's a very good example, isn't it?
And that hasn't, by the way, we haven't even touched on the heart, the veins and the arteries that pump it all around the body.
Right, yeah.
And if the blood was evolved first, all it would have been was a pile of blood on the ground for 1 million years. No function either.
It makes a nonsense.
It really does make a nonsense
of
it,
the whole
doesn't it?
idea of something coming together like that over a long period of time, you know.
Then Michael Behe, I'm just intrigued by him because he also made other references about intelligent design, because he used this idea of these famous head sculptures in Mount Rushmore in Oregon in America, of the 4 presidents of the United States, Washington, Abraham Lincoln.
They're very famous, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. And then Jefferson, and I think there was another one called Roosevelt, I think is the 4th one,
That's right, Roosevelt. Yeah.
But these
They're
sculptures...
often asked in quizzes, actually, who are they?
Are they?
Yeah, often are. Who are the 4 heads?
I always miss out on one of them, but the interesting feature is that these are sculptures are 60 feet high. Right. The nose itself are 20 feet high. And, it's obvious to someone that someone had to sculpt them, that they didn't just suddenly happen.
Right.
And if take other examples like the pyramids in Egypt. Or the Taj Mahal, or the Pieta in the Vatican, that priceless work of art by Michelangelo.
That's right.
Jesus, and whereas is beautifully smooth, had to be sculpted.
I'll give you a simple example. I just had occurring to me. A simple mouse trap, there's only 5 parts to it, but it wouldn't catch a single mouse if even one of those parts wasn't there at the time. And if it had to be a long number of years between one part coming together and all that. So.
Yeah, that's a very good example.
Yeah, it's very good.
It's a very simple one, but it really brings out the point very forcibly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's actually one of the things that Michael Behe himself mentions in that book, Darwin's Black Box. So, interesting point there, Seamus.
I just read a little. Sorry to interrupt you, Mike. There now. I just came across a little. It was just a little devotion I was reading there, and it's based on a Bible verse, which in Isaiah 40, verse 26 says, "Lift your eyes and look to the heavens," and it's called "The Design and the Designer." And it was a man called Werner von Braun. He was just the first director of NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center. I think you're familiar with him, definitely.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
He's known as the father of the American space programs, and he stated in a published article in May 1974, "One cannot be exposed to the law and order of the universe without concluding there must be a design and purpose behind it." And he said, just at the end of the article, it says, "Evolutionists challenge science to prove the existence of God. But must we really light a candle to see the sun?"
Yeah.
Very basic. They say they cannot visualize a designer. Well, can a physicist visualize an electron? Obviously not. What strange rationale then makes some physicists accept the inconceivable electron as real while refusing to accept the reality of a designer on the ground that they cannot conceive him? So it kind of lits in with what you're saying there.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. The other aspect about he brings in, he doesn't mention him as specifically, but I think I'm delighted you brought that Werner von Braun example in, because here he is, one of the architects of the space shuttle and the rockets that send man to the moon, and obviously he knew if he designed it himself, and to say that it just happened would be, nonsense, really,
Absolutely.
But, even the wristwatch, which Michael Behe also mentions,
wristwatch,
if, it has a spring, coil, a hands and a face, and who would buy a wristwatch, be it a digital display one or one that you have to wind up. If any of these aspects of it were missing, you wouldn't spend large amounts of money. Indeed, you wouldn't spend any money at all on a wristwatch that couldn't tell the time. And so all of these parts, again, what Michael Behe's trying to get across is had to come together at the same time. Rather than over billions of years. And it's no wonder, indeed, that Michael Denton, he's a biochemist, and he said that the evolution as a theory is a theory in crisis. And, he wrote about that in his book, Evolution, a Theory in Crisis. And he said it's just another preposterous idea. Douglas Axe, you may not have only heard of him recently as I was doing a bit of research into this podcast. But Douglas Axe says that, and he's a professor of molecular biology now, and he wrote a book, Undeniable. And I thought it was interesting why he wrote it, because he said, it explains how biology confirms our intuition that life is designed. And, when you have to hand it on, because, our basic intuition really tells us when we see something that, like the pyramids or the Mount Rushmore presidents, that they have to be designed.
Exactly. Absolutely. Okay. I think we'll move on a little bit further, if you don't mind now, Mike, if you're finished your thoughts on that one there for the moment. And it naturally leads us to the concept now of intelligent design. And you mentioned it a number of times already, that the idea that complex life forms cannot be explained solely by natural causes. And it does argue for an intelligent designer. And I suppose one of the main things you have to talk about or consider in this regard would be DNA. So can you talk about that?
DNA.
It's a good example of intelligent design, isn't it?
It is. It's probably one of the best examples. And, the odds of DNA happening, by chance, randomly from sort of a primordial soup are just, nil. Because Hubert Yockey, now he's a nuclear physicist, and he's not necessarily religiously motivated even, but he denied that life could ever have evolved from a primordial soup containing DNA. And he wrote, that for a simple protein to happen, which requires DNA, of course, for the simplest protein, which is the basic building block of life, you require 2,000 enzymes to come together at the same time, functioning at the same time.
Right.
And, the odds of that are incredible, because not only do they have to come together at the same time, going back to maybe a little bit on the irreducible complexity here as well, because they're both intertwined. But, to show how impossible that is, they have to come together not only by that means, but also in the right order. And if I could just give you an example there, I was just thinking of the lotto. Now, I don't play the lotto or anything like that, but, the Irish lotto, you have to get 6 numbers out of a batch of 50. And the odds of that are 1 in apparently 14 million.
Right.
Well, for the basic protein, where 2,000 enzymes have to come together at the same time and function together, is 1 with, or 10 with 40,000 zeros after it. Now, that's, just to give some context of that, the number of grains of sand in the earth is number 10 with 22 zeros after it. And so if you are looking to do something like winning the lotto, can you imagine? It's one thing to get the numbers right, which is very unusual and difficult, but it's another thing to get them right in the right order. And that would make the odds absolutely astronomical and indeed impossible indeed. So we can see it means for the basic protein to evolve by random, unguided chance diminishes that idea to nil.
Yeah.
But, just regarding when you asked there about DNA specifically, in simple terms, DNA is that cell which contains the genetic instructions that for life
We
to
hear
exist.
the term being used, somebody might be doing something in a certain way, and people would say his parents might have done it before him, a way of carrying, even walking possibly, and people would say that's DNA, that's the
That's
DNA.
right,
that
all
he
of these traits.
inherited
Like,
from his parents, yeah.
Like the colour of your hair, the colour of
Yeah.
your eyes, as you say, your gait or whatever
Yeah.
else,
Yeah.
But it contains all of these general instructions for life. And, so it's a huge information storing system.
Obviously.
And, the chemical in DNA programs every cell to develop into, say, such as an eye. You'll have other cells that develop into a heart, others into lungs and bones and so on. And you're probably familiar what it looks like. You can only see it under the most up-to-date microscopes, but it has this helix 8 type figure with rungs attaching to the sides, and the number 8, one on top of the other. That's DNA. But it has 3 billion letters, and if you're to stretch it out, it can stretch from here to the sun 300 times. I mean,
Can't imagine that.
I can't get my head around that myself. But
Can't really imagine that.
the sun is 93 million miles away, and here it can go, if stretched out, 300 times forward back. But
mind-boggling.
yeah, and then these letters in the DNA code can be read forwards and backwards.
Yeah.
And if that wasn't enough, they can also reproduce themselves
Yeah.
when they're damaged.
Yeah.
And that it also makes everybody unique. Like your thumbprints are unique to yourself. Your pupils of your eye recognition, that's unique to yourself.
There's no two people the same.
No two people the same.
Even identical twins, they're not the same.
There's always that minute difference there somewhere.
Consider when you think about the billions of people that have come and gone.
Yeah.
And there's no two people the same.
No people the same. Even your dental records are unique to yourself. I mean, many murders have been resolved through dental records alone, you know.
Yeah.
And so we are unique, and that's all because of our DNA is unique.
Yeah.
And so these 3 billion letters, if a book with 3 billion letters would take 7 lifetimes to read, because, the average book would be just maybe a couple of 100,000 letters, but 3 billion. Imagine that. So you'd never even read it. It's so intricate. And remember, and the reason I mentioned that at all is because all of that information is condensed into a minute cell that can't even be seen with the naked eye. And so that's what your DNA is capable of. And so you have to recognize that there must be somebody that's a designer and a creator. God has to be involved.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you can take, for instance, somebody gave an explanation I thought was interesting, like you can take a bottle of ink and splash it on a page.
Yeah.
But unless you have somebody outside of the ink to form words and sentences and paragraphs, then the whole thing won't make sense.
Wouldn't make sense, yeah.
And that's exactly what DNA does.
Yeah. Can I just, something I came across somebody, and it's not my own, discovered myself, but it talks about DNA in a baby, for example. I believe, somebody said in 3 weeks a heart has formed and starts beating. In 4 weeks, that minute cell has grown 10,000 times larger. 6 weeks, the neurons in that cell now grow at a rate of 10,000 per second. Next, everything from the optic nerve to the brain and the respiratory system forms. And there's nothing random or accidental in the genetic coding or instructions. And every single cell, is in place. And absolutely, that's just a baby,
Yeah. It's not incredible.
An incredible thing.
So as you said yourself, there's nothing random or unguided by that. The cell, for instance, the cells for the eye don't go to where the foot should be. And the cells for the heart don't end up where the lungs should be, or your teeth don't end up coming out of your elbow. Everything knows where to go automatically. And that's all because of the instructions encoded in your DNA cell, which can't even be seen by the naked eye. And yet they say this just formed by a random, mindless process, unguided.
Or over millions of years.
Over millions of years, So there's nothing random or accidental about that. They're all, it's all in our genetic coding and instructions. There's an article, actually, I'll read myself here just to complement that. It says here, the more advanced science becomes, the more evidence there is for a master designer. Researchers continue to uncover divine order in each tiny human cell. American biochemist Bruce Alberts, former president of the National Academy of Science, writes, "We have always underestimated cells. Undoubtedly, we still do. Cells are the basic unit of life. Indeed, the entire cell can be viewed as a factory that contains an elaborate network of interlocking assembly lines, each of which is composed of a set of different protein machines in defined positions." I mean, that says it all, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely,
there's nothing random or misguided about that.
And what about, you're talking, very good example there, Mike, about DNA in humans and the eye and baby and all those things. What about in the natural world, like a leaf, for instance? Do you have? Somebody talked about that. I heard somebody mention that one time.
That's right. Yeah.
DNA in a leaf.
I have an example of a leaf here, and
key design features.
The key this is where the chlorophyll has gone from it, but you can see all the minute little veins in the leaf, showing that they must have been designed. But the DNA in a leaf has key DNA design features, resulting in that little arrangement of veins there that we can show you later. And these leaves are, every tree has different shaped leaves, different designed leaves, and they all have different designs within themselves, just like snowflakes. No two snowflakes are the same. Every snowflake is different, which is.
Did you ever see that? Maybe not. Maybe it's a little bit. I hope not putting you off your track. On a misty morning, sometimes in autumn, you see spiders on the hedge, all the intricate webs.
The webs,
and they've done it overnight.
Unbelievable, isn't it?
See the complexity.
And then every spider has its own type of, all the different spiders in the world have different types of webs, which is interesting. But, this leaf, you have the veins. Every leaf and the leaves on different trees are different. And the veins can be seen, and they're covered by this substance, as you probably know, called chlorophyll, which absorbs energy from the sun. And by photosynthesis, which effectively acts like a solar panel. And it's only relatively recently houses have started to put solar panels on the roofs to get the benefit of the sun. And here we have leaves.
I think it's what changes the colours in autumn, isn't it? The photosynthesis.
That's right, beautiful
fabulous colours, browns, and you can see them all coming in.
I mean, a forest of browns and yellows is nothing to compare with this, sure it's not. But, these solar panels on our rooftops today, a creator designer came up with that design from infinity past. And, most importantly then, of course, the leaf takes in carbon dioxide and gives out oxygen. So without that being in its DNA, we'd all die anyway. you know, so
Yeah.
it's so important.
Mm.
Not to mention the DNA in the tree itself.
Yeah.
But, you know, an example that someone came up with, I'm not sure who it was, but it's to do with numbers again. But if you could imagine 40,000 index cards that are neatly stacked
I can't.
and numbered, then, you know, just get them.
Yeah.
You know, these cards that we have there
Yeah.
that you have in front of
Yeah,
you,
okay.
say now there's 40,000 of those, and they're
yeah,
each
yeah.
stacked
Okay.
in numbers of indexed and numbered in order in 1,000 different little bundles.
Yeah.
If you brought those up into an aeroplane and you threw them out of the aeroplane, they'd all go randomly all over the place.
All over the place, yeah.
And then the wind would blow them here and blow them there. What are the chances of them coming down and forming 1,000 bundles in the exact order? I mean, the chances are nil, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so it shows for that to happen, there would have to be a creator behind it all. And, you know, so it's all in the encoded instructions in the DNA.
Yeah.
And yes, this idea of those cards coming down from that plane, forming into 1,000 different bundles by chance, is what evolutionists are asking us to believe happened with how life evolved.
Yeah.
So they need to really question what these scientists are telling us.
Have the likes of Bill Gates? We all know about Bill Gates, or we know something about him. We've heard about him many times in recent times. Richard Dawkins, anything to say on, say, DNA? You know, have they anything?
In actual fact, they both do, because Bill Gates says that DNA is like a computer, you know, program. You know, he's one of the inventors of it, wasn't he, in the first place? But so he'd be familiar with that. But he says DNA is far more complex than that. And, you know, that's an understatement, because it's unquantifiably more complex than and advanced than a computer ever is or could be.
Yeah.
And so that would be something that Bill Gates would have made a comment on DNA. But Richard Dawkins as well, and I gave you the example earlier on, and he was asked the question, you know, can you give us an example of a genetic mutation that can be shown where information has been added to the genome? And he couldn't answer it. And so why could he not answer it? And the reason he couldn't answer it is because you know, mutations always have less information. And for something to evolve, you have to have more information.
More information.
You know, and so he was, you know, and this would bring in Genesis 1 as well, because Genesis 1 talks about each after its own kind.
Each after its own kind,
and
each
12 times.
The creation of the universe and the animal kingdom and birds and animals,
That's
each
right.
after its own kind. It says that, doesn't it? Yeah.
And, you know, 12 times it says, you know, you can have each evolving within their own kind, but for macroevolution, which means one kind turns into another, there's no proof of that. I mean, scales on a fish never have and never will become feathers on a bird.
Yeah.
And so mutations, as I say, macroevolution can't work.
Yeah.
And for mutations to work, you have to have more information, not less information. And even if you did mate, say, a cat with a dog and came up with a
dog cat.
Yeah, a dog cat.
Cat dog.
But they've tried it,
Yeah,
and
I'm sure they have.
they've come up with an offspring, but the offspring has always been infertile, so it can't progress beyond that. And so evolution can't work there either.
That's very practical proof, isn't it?
Well, I would think so, yeah. And, you know, Dawkins now, another thing Richard Dawkins said, which is interesting, he says, you know, DNA, you know, neither cares nor knows. We just dance to its music. Now, if
What do you mean by that?
Well, I suppose with the example that we gave there earlier on about, you know, the
just accept it blindly.
Yeah, where we were saying that, you know, the eye and the blood cells and every cell in the DNA knowing where to go. You know, if it didn't care and didn't know, then they wouldn't know where to go, and you would have random things happening within the cell. You'd have the heart coming out of your eyeball or whatever,
I know.
because it didn't know where to go.
Right.
And so if you deny a super intelligent, omniscient creator, then you'll dance to any music.
Absolutely.
You will dance to any music, and that's what Dawkins has done. Unlike now, of course, William Dembski, who holds now, this is somebody that holds both master's and doctorate degrees in mathematics and statistics, biology, theology, and philosophy, rather.
Yeah. Every ologist is all
the
the ologists.
I mean, he's a very, very widely
brilliant man, obviously.
Brilliant man. But he said, and I'll quote here, he says, intelligent design, rather than being an atheistic an atheistic mindless evolution, in order to provide a God-free explanation for the universe. And he says his concept or understanding of specified complexity, such as DNA, which we're just after discussing, went on to say, verifies intelligent design, arguing that complex information is not likely to arise through natural processes alone and left to themselves working randomly. Rather, he believes that there is a purpose and an order and a design in the universe by the intervention of God.
Absolutely.
And to quote one more, if I may, James, there, Douglas Axe, he compares the DNA code, which consists of letters, and he compares that to the computer program, binary program of computers, which are all based on the numbers 1 and 0. So every single piece of information that you're getting out of a computer is based on just two numbers, 1 and 0. And so he's comparing that to the DNA letters, of course, which has 3 billion, which is infinitely more complex. Yeah. And he's a molecular biologist, and he says, these both, be it DNA or your computer, both convey information that is complex and specific and cannot work if it was based on a random basis.
Wow. There you
Yeah.
Okay, you're a mine of information, Mike.
Yeah. It took some research. This didn't all come to me automatically.
I know, fair enough. Absolutely, I can see that. Will we move on for a few minutes now to consider the fine-tuning of the universe itself? And okay, stepping outside biology, Mike, for a few minutes, can we consider a concept called the fine-tuning of the universe? And creationists say the whole creation has an intelligent designer. We've looked at that now for a bit already, who is Almighty God. And it's based on many scriptures. When I suppose the first one and very important foundation of scripture is Genesis chapter 1 and verse 1, which says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And can we just, for a few minutes, discuss some examples of this fine-tuning or intelligent design in the fine-tuning of the universe, in looking at, for instance, the law of gravity and the law of constants, laws of physics.
Yeah. Well, let's take how finely tuned the law of gravity actually is, because as recently as the 1970s, two physicists, Barron and Tipler, stated that if gravity was tweeted just over 1 part in 10 billion, then life on this earth wouldn't exist. And it's also accepted by many by scientists generally that if the gravitational force of the universe itself was not sufficient, then the planets would be all out of sync with one another. And planets would not be orbiting stars. Indeed, our own Earth would not be orbiting the sun. And then the galaxies themselves would be out of tune with every other planet as well.
Can imagine the chaos that would bring.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the exact word to use. It would be total chaos, and order will never come out of disorder. And we saw that a little bit in the last section, but constants are built into the solar system, and they're not random, so that life can survive. And indeed, the universe and the laws of physics that govern it, even in order to permit life, are only because these laws remain constant. And even if small changes were made to these laws, then life itself would be impossible. And we probably know that the Earth is 93 million miles from the Sun, but if it was even less than 1% closer, in other words, say 0.9% closer, then life wouldn't exist either, because we can see how deserts and things like that, the world would become a desert and life wouldn't be possible either. And it's worth noting that the former astrophysicist and paraplegic Stephen Hawking, many people would remember him, and he only
saw
died.
a film about him one time.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. And, it was tragic in the way it happened. It happened so gradually, and he wasn't expected to live more than a few months, but he actually lived for more than 50 years. But I just quote from him there, unfortunately, he said, "I do not believe in a designer of the universe, and that it could have been, occurred spontaneously through the laws of physics themselves, making a creator unnecessary." And then he went on to say, "Yet, I wanted to emphasize there that having said that, he himself, he didn't explain where these complex laws of physics came from. And, these are very complex laws, and or who invented them. And as you said at your outset there, James, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And so that's where they
came from.
Source of them all. But he denied that and said it all came spontaneously through physical laws. And he went on to, the irony of it is that he went on then to, concur and acknowledge intelligent design. And a quote from him again, he says, "The array of factors which had to perfectly coalesce and continually coalesce for life to be possible is breathtaking."
Major change of art.
So he's contradicting himself there totally, as far as I can see. And even worse than on his deathbed, he uttered 4 words, "There is no God." And that was in spite of all the evidence that he spent his life working on.
Absolutely. Unbelievable. Shocking statement, isn't it?
It is,
Deathbed.
And 1 second later, he would have realised how wrong he was.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And,
shows how depraved the human mind can be to get to that point.
It is,
An intelligent mind and, brilliant man, obviously.
Yeah.
And then he got to the point where he uttered something like that on his deathbed.
Yeah, deathbed, yeah. It's tragic, isn't
Beggars
it?
belief, isn't it?
It does.
Speaking of gravity, you mentioned that, I think, briefly there, Mike. Can we consider, for instance, the gravitational pull of the moon and its effect on the ebb and flow of tides? And something I've been fascinated by, and we're all very familiar with the seaside this time of the year now. People will be visiting the seasides all over the world in Ireland. And you see the tides coming in and out, and the ebb and flow, and a lot of people would have some kind of a little inkling about the moon has something to do with that, as I would have had as well. But that's a fascinating thing, isn't it? About how does the fine tuning come in there?
Well, if the moon wasn't there would be no gravitational pull at all. But the fact that it's there, and it does have a gravitational pull on the earth, and if that wasn't there, then there would be no tides and ebbs and flows of the tides, and it would remain, the water would remain stagnant. And, stagnant water isn't something that's very palatable, and it would ultimately end up not accommodating life on the earth as well. Then, the tilt of the earth is also
I was going
important.
to ask something about that. I heard something about that there some time ago, the tilt of the earth as well. That's something that's connected with that, isn't it?
Yeah. It is, the tilt of the earth is exactly 23.5 degrees. And that's vital as well because, if the planet, if it wasn't at 23.5 degrees, then there would be extremes of heat and cold far, far worse than we experience in the extremities at the moment of heat and cold. Okay. And we can see how essential that would be to support life as well,
Yeah.
And, it's no wonder that the astronomer and astrophysicist, indeed, Fred Hoyle, commented on this. And he said that, it would be just like expecting a tornado to, go through a junkyard and out of the other side, producing a Boeing 737 jet.
Right.
So
sounds ridiculous, doesn't it?
Yeah, beggars belief, really, as far as I can see.
Yeah.
But Isaac Newton himself, he also had one of his colleagues, a scientist as well, and came into his office one day, and Isaac Newton had this scale model of the universe. Now, scale model isn't possible, it's so big, but he had this model of the universe, and he actually, the colleague says, well, when did you make that, and where did that come from? He says, well, it had nothing to do with it, it just actually happened. I came in this morning and there it was. And his colleague says, don't be ridiculous, or somebody had to make it.
Yeah.
And he then retorted and says, well, if you can realise that somebody had to make that, why would you deny that somebody actually had made the actual universe itself?
Yeah, fair
and the whole
challenging question,
system.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. So
okay. Well, I suppose still on the fine-tuning of the universe, if we move on to nature itself, have we any examples of fine-tuning, of in the natural world of, say, fish or animals? And is there anything there that you...
Yeah, I was thinking there just on that particular question, in nature, in the animal kingdom, we have the sperm whale. And, the power and the size of this creature is just phenomenal and indeed unique. And it can grow up to 70 feet long.
Is that the biggest animal in the world? Is that
that and the blue whale would be the biggest animals that ever existed, bigger than the biggest dinosaurs. But it's 70 feet, just under 70 feet long, weighs 50 tons, and it has the loudest sound of any creature in the animal kingdom. And
I've seen some television programs. I think David Attenborough would have covered a bit of that as well.
Yeah, I think there's
others as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's very good on those aspects. But I didn't actually see anything that he did on that particular animal, but I'm sure he has. But in addition to that, it can communicate underwater hundreds of miles.
Wonderful.
And its ribs can condense. Gets smaller as it goes down lower because of the pressure of the atmospheric pressure per square inch. And the atmospheric pressure that mankind on the face of the earth endures is 14 pounds per square inch. But down at the levels that swims and the depths that it goes to get its food is phenomenal. It would be 100 times greater. It's 1,400 tons per square inch. And the other aspect of that, and it just shows you how all this is fine-tuned, because its food is the giant squid, and the giant squid lives at the bottom of the ocean. So how does it go to the bottom of the ocean? Yeah. And
the pressure of the size of the animal going all the way down.
And yet it survives. And so how does it do it? Well,
I know somebody who does diving, a friend of mine, and he dives down to maybe a couple of 100 feet, and he he often tells me about the way they have to build up the pressure to go down, and
it takes a lot of training and have
absolutely.
a rope to hold on to, and if they didn't, because at that depth it's totally dark. But if you go down a mile,
Mile.
it's it's total darkness.
Yeah.
So how does it source its food, and how does it get down there? And it needs actually 1 ton of food every day.
Every day, yeah.
So it has these 2 balloon type vessels in its head, which are full of 3 tons. Weighs 3 tons of if it's the milky wax substance, and so this milky wax substance it loses its density at this stage, and the whale, or it increases its density, so the whale then begins to drop and drop further and further down to the bottom of the ocean. And how does it source its food when it can't even see it at that level? And it has these sonar built-in sonar
Radar,
just like a radar, exactly, that airplanes use at night to land and take off. And so all of these aspects are just phenomenal, really.
Yeah.
And you might remember, it's worth recalling, they're just, I think, less than 3 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, this submersible called the Titan, and it had 5 people in it, and it went down half a mile, excuse me, and it totally imploded.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Yeah, and for days and months later, they were looking and searching for the vessel and the people in it, but they were, reduced to a pulp at that stage because of the pressure, and yet this animal can go down and rise. And so how does it rise then again? Well, the density of this milky wax substance then reduces, and so the buoyancy lifts it up to the top of the surface, so
like
it
can
breathe again. Yeah, like a balloon.
Yeah, like
Well, that's actually what it has in, except that
okay.
it can hold 3 tons of milky wax substance.
It has the weight to bring it down, and then when it needs to get up, it just kicks in.
Kicks in as well, yeah. Oh, yeah. So it had to be created like that.
If that's not fine tuning.
No, so it's so finely tuned that it couldn't source its food or either see it, or it would just either remain on the bottom of the ocean without having the ability to rise again.
Yeah.
So that would be a real example. Yeah. There's thousands of examples. Every living thing has some sort of unique aspect to it.
Is that the animal? Is that the whale that when it goes into these massive big shoals of krill? I think that's not the sperm whale.
No, that would be the blue whale.
It's a different one. Okay, it just
is equally as big. This has to go down to get its the giant squid at the bottom of the ocean.
It's the giant squid.
Yeah,
okay, right. Yeah. That's his. That's his source of
food. 1 ton a day.
Right, unbelievable.
Imagine having to eat that. So.
Okay, maybe if could we move on then maybe today, finally, to look at, after looking at the fine tuning of the universe and especially again the animal creation there, just to consider maybe from an evolutionist point of view. Would not an argument, and I'm being the devil's advocate here now, would not an argument for evolution be, for instance, a thing called natural selection? I take that to mean, the survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Sometimes they use that as an argument.
Yeah, they were interchangeable terms.
Yeah. How would you tackle that one?
Well,
I know you've discussed, I think you mentioned it already early on in the time. Maybe.
But just to look at a little more detail there, natural selection and survival of the fittest is totally opposed to intelligent design. And intelligent design, let me say, is not anti-science. It's just a valid interpretation of the evidence that's there. And, the origin of information, when you think of it, where does all of this information come from? Because it's so vast that it's literally unquantifiable, and yet they have no understanding of where, and deny, of course, where it did come from, and have still no ideas other than theories which are unproven to support that particular belief. And the other aspect is that it argues that the biological and informational features of living things are far too complex to be the result of natural selection and with no designer. So we've already dealt with the fact that it can't be over vast periods of time.
Yeah.
And indeed, if there was huge periods of time, millions of years between each creative event, first of all, could I say that, in Genesis 1, as you referred to earlier on, James, Genesis 1 says all these animals, fish, birds, and trees and so on are all made after their own kind.
Exactly,
And they're also, not only that, but the scripture says again in Genesis 1 that there was after each creative event, that there was morning and evening. Morning and evening, as you know, it means 24-hour periods, so it's not millions of years.
Absolutely, yes. Very good point, isn't it?
They estimate that it's
morning and evening were the first day, and then it's the morning and evening were the second day,
and goes on for the whole period.
Yeah.
But they estimate that evolutionists who, because they deny God, estimate that the Earth is about 13 billion years old. But in actual fact, they arrive at that point because they know they can't make it any longer. Because if it was any, say 20 or 30 billion years old, then the magnetic field around the Earth would have long dissipated.
How can they even quantify that? After 30 billion years, how can they figure that out?
Well, they know that can't be the case, because if it dissipates, then life can't exist.
I know. Okay.
And so they arrive at this figure.
Yeah.
And of course, through the different strata on the Earth, which we can deal with at another time. But the exposure to solar radiation is makes it impossible for life to exist as well, because if these they're in this catch-22 situation, because if it was weakened, then several consequences of this magnetic field would kick in and expose the world to more radiation. And if you have a nuclear plant and you go in without protective clothing, you just get a disease and die.
Adios, amigo.
Yeah, it is. That's a good way of saying it. But that's what would happen to the whole human race if that magnetic field wasn't there. And so it would make life impossible.
Yeah, I think on natural selection then, I think there's a negative, for the people that do believe in that. And, some people probably honestly and might have a faith in that. I think there's an important thing needs to be said about that as well. There's very serious dangers in natural selection if left unchecked. Can you address something on that one there, Mike?
Yeah, I was thinking of that too, because,
thing called eugenics. Does that come into play here?
That would come in all right, yeah, we'll look at that shortly.
Okay.
But the actual phrase natural selection or survival of the fittest rather is inaccurate, because it has not been proven for a start. And then the other point is that the evidence is hugely lacking, that competition has been the driving force in evolution of large species.
Yeah.
And, if the evidence is lacking, then if you go to a court case and there's no evidence or there's huge evidence lacking, then it'll be just simply thrown out. And yet that's what they're asking us to believe here. And then the other thing, of course, is that while some species haven't survived, it wasn't necessarily because of weaker genes, but because of destruction of their local habitats, then of hunting as well.
For instance, somebody I heard only recently, on some wildlife program, they're talking about the demise of the lark, for instance.
The lark, yeah.
I remember years ago, you'd see a lark rising up out of the field and straight up, lovely, and they used to nest on the grass, and the corn crake, of course, that one is more or less extinct in a lot of places now. It's, as you just said there, it's because their natural habitat is being destroyed, and hunting.
Hunting, And it's the same with the Amazon forest. There's several monkeys that are on the edge of extinction because they're cutting down the Amazon forest in large swathes.
Yeah.
And then so you have.
So it's not the survival of the fittest at all.
No.
I mean, those are very logical reasons why why some species might be disappearing. Or certainly not.
And it has been the case that in the past it's been proven that hunting has been the cause of it, and then destruction of habitats, as I said. But there's also then the climatic events throughout history. Yeah. And we're not just talking about the climate change now at the moment, but these things have happened over aeons of time. And then pesticides would be more present day. So they'd all have their part to play.
Pesticides has been a huge source, I'd say, of destruction of habitats, and that leads to, the wildlife suffering and, that kind of thing.
And so... natural selection or survival of the fittest, whichever term you would want to use, cannot explain and has not explained how the gaps between different species might have been bridged. And that's a huge problem for them. So that's the missing link, and they still haven't found it. And, if there's no beneficial mutations in the gene flow, then the process cannot lead to new and improved traits, because mutations always have less information within the cells, and whereas you need increased information within the cell, in other words, for it to evolve. And then
it's quite technical there.
But there's another term that fascinates me. The second law of thermodynamics. But to explain that in a more simple way would be the law of entropy. Because if you leave something, to itself, it will naturally degenerate. Like, if you take your car, for instance, after a year or two, you might have to change the battery and the brakes. But if you leave it there for 500 years, it won't even be worth scrap metal.
I've often seen cars abandoned out the country in ditches. And, they might be there for years, and you just see them disintegrating before your eyes, metal and all, just going right down to dust,
That's right, it's not even worth scrap metal after so many years. And then after 1,000 years, it would be, as you said, dust itself.
Just dust,
Now, unless there's an outside force that steps in to preserve the car or something like that. So that's another example.
I've always heard of that as the second law of thermodynamics. And you say entropy is the same thing, isn't it?
See, and the reason is why it degenerates is there's no added function. And for it to keep, evolving, there has to be an added function to the process.
And the danger of that, then, of course, you're going to give us a little inkling into this term called eugenics. Would that come in there now?
Well, it would, James, because, this term, it's a dangerous term in another sense, because the survival of the fittest led to the horror of eugenics, where mankind eventually becomes expendable unless he is of some value to society. And this was how Hitler and Stalin and Lenin and others viewed society.
Hitler tried to create a super race. And
the Aryan race.
That's right, Aryan race. Right.
Tall, blue-eyed, blonde and handsome. And Hitler himself wasn't any of these, so he probably wouldn't have survived his own desires there. But one person that really surprised me above them all was George Bernard Shaw, the playwright. And he's
very
the only
reputable in Ireland now. He would have been,
as one says. Well, he was the only. He's the only one that, for decades, that won the Oscar and the Nobel Peace Prize. That held the two of them.
Right.
Other than up to a few years ago, when apparently Bob Dylan also. So they're the only two. But George Bernard Shaw for decades was the only one.
Okay.
And but he made a speech. And I'd just like to read part of the speech that he said.
George Bernard Shaw.
George Bernard Shaw.
Yeah.
Now these are
Okay.
his own words,
Right.
and it's actually on film, video there if you wanted to see it. But as I object to all punishment. I don't want to punish anybody, but there is an extraordinary number of people I want to kill. For it must be evident to all of you, and each of you must know half a dozen people at least, who are of no use in this world, who are more trouble than they are worth. And I think it would be a good thing that if every 5 to 7 years mankind should come before a properly appointed board and asked the question, now, sir, will you be kind enough to justify your existence? If you're not justifying your existence, he went on to say, if you're not fulfilling your weight in society, if you're not producing as much as you produce or consume, or better still, a little more, then clearly you are of no use to society for the purpose of keeping you alive, because your life does not benefit us and it can't be of much benefit to you either. End of quote. That's not extraordinary.
What a statement.
Yeah, and that's all because he embraced, along with Hitler and Stalin and,
Say very few people know that about George Bernard Shaw.
Oh, yeah. I
He
mean,
made that a quotation.
I only came across it there in
He'd be
research
looked
for
on in
this.
Ireland as a kind of an icon, and rightly so for his writings and his
He spent
skill
most
as a
of his
playwright.
life then in England after that. But
Yeah.
it demolishes morality when you think of it, and it denies.
Survival of the fittest, you're talking about now, yeah.
And
I can see that.
it's because they deny God. He didn't believe in God and life after death, and so man becomes and acts as God himself. If that was carried to its full to its end,
Right.
And a lot of this is devalues human beings and reduces them to just merely another species.
Another species. Yeah.
Which is what natural selection and survival of the fittest brings about.
Because it ignores God.
That's exactly it. Because it ignores God, and mankind then takes a wrecking ball to it. But an interesting thing too is John Lennox. I mentioned him earlier on, but
he's the professor in mathematics in. You mentioned him,
that's right.
Oxford, great.
Oxford University, but the very
brilliant man.
Yeah, and he's a great apologist, and as you know, Dawkins won't even interview him anymore because he's lost every debate. But somebody said to him once that, why would you believe in God who is the cause of all this, these wrongs in the world and so on? And he quite rightly pointed out, well, let me ask you the alternative. How many people have Lenin, Stalin, who have been responsible for killing 65 million people of their own people? Then there's Mao Zedong, 40 million. The Pol Pot, several million. Hitler, 65 million. And Genghis Khan, 40 million. And all these didn't accept that there was a God. And look at the mayhem they've brought upon the earth. So that's the alternative.
The legacy they've left.
The legacy, Yeah. So there's whereas God, and it's interesting that on the door of, and I think I might have it here. If you just bear, that on the door of the science lab in Cambridge University, there's a quote from Psalm 111, verse 2.
Right.
It says, "Great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them." And here you have so many of these students going in disbelieving in that, but so many scientists do believe that nowadays, and more as the days go by.
Exactly. It's come a long way since the beginning. If you read the book of Genesis, there's a perfect environment there after God created the earth, and then Adam and Eve, and they lived in a garden which was a we believe, creationists believe, there's a perfect environment, and then, of course, sin came, and that perfect environment then was demolished, and even, man's sin brought sickness and disease, and even the natural environment, thistles and nettles, and we all struggle with them ever since, and they're all a result of the fall of man, and so that has brought the chaos into the world. That's what creationists would believe in. So, okay, Mike, we've covered a lot in this section on evolution versus creation, from considering irreducible complexity, and we looked at that as a big argument against evolution, to the huge evidence for the need of an intelligent designer who we call God. And we saw clearly the need for intelligent design for the fine-tuning of the universe and created world. And lastly there, and you very well covered it, we considered one of the big arguments evolutionists use, natural selection. And is there anything you'd like to add to those?
Yeah, well, just I suppose as a very briefest of recaps there, Seamus, evolution has some merit in it, in that different species have evolved over the years, but only within their own given kind.
Yeah.
And, Darwin's finches, they're with the different sized beaks, they always remained finches. The cat family, for instance, you have tigers, lions, down to the domestic cat. But all are cats within the same species. Cats will never macro evolve over to dogs or elephants or horses, and never will. And then I suppose on the question of irreducible complexity, there's one pertinent example that I could have given earlier on, but this is a good time to give it anyway, and as you know, irreducible complexity, it has to have every functioning system operating at the same time. And I just wanted to remind us here of the space shuttle Challenger in 1986, which took off and exploded after 73 seconds, killing all 5, I think it was, on board instantaneously.
Slight recollection of that,
it made the headlines at the time. But that space shuttle consists of 2.5 million parts, complex parts, and intricate parts, and all had to be in situ and functioning at the same time. But the reason it exploded was that there was one single part missing. And it was only the size of a thumbnail, or a nail, not even your thumbnail, just an ordinary nail on your fingers. And that failed. And so it just shows you, if that one part of the total is missing or fails, then everything fails. Disaster ensues. And, that would be a good example for, irreducible complexity as well.
Good.
And the other thing, regarding materialism and its functions, where did this primordial soup come from, that had within it the capacity and all the information to evolve into trees and flowers and animals, birds and fish.
This is what the evolution says.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And
primordial soup.
Primordial soup, yeah. But when you think of it too, if you ever look at the folds of a rose, the way the petals are folded in, they're
beautiful.
Yeah, you have to think, well, surely this couldn't have come from nothing. And the equation for the evolutionists is, of course, nothing plus nobody equals everything. And so I would just encourage people to rethink these truths,
with an open mind.
With an open mind, yeah.
Examine all the evidence and
because it underlines, if you're to believe in the alternative to a creator, then it undermines rationality, rational thinking. It's a fallacy, and it even undermines reasoning.
Absolutely,
which is
so many unanswered questions.
Yeah.
You're just going into quagmire of your own thoughts and theories. Where they're going to get people. We need scientific facts based on. Absolute things you can observe around you, like science teaches, and we need, belief in God, which doesn't contradict any of that. And as scientists, as you said there a couple of times, have lost them now, are coming back to seriously question all the theories and to look on creation as
that's right, and
something real that has answers.
Disassociated themselves with Darwin.
Yeah, that's an interesting turnaround, isn't it?
It is really.
You've given us a lot to think about there, Mike, and you fleshed out some of the big questions I've often considered, certainly, but probably never studied in detail, and certainly food for thought. And I suppose we'd like, as we finish up this particular podcast, we'd like the listener to, we invite them to join us next time when we'll be examining archaeology and what archaeology can tell us about the Bible's claim to truth. And, so if you have any queries, or if you want to leave a review or share with a friend, please do. And you can visit us at our website, www.kilkennychristianassembly.com. And so for now, we will just leave you and from our podcast, which is, the name of it is This Day Podcast, and based on the concept of yesterday is gone, tomorrow is out of sight, it's not promised to anybody, and all we have is this day. And the Bible actually says something about that. It says, to choose life, and that's what we really are all about. That's what the Bible is about, is offering life, real life, spiritual life. And it says, now is the day of salvation. One of the quotations, the Lord himself said, now is the day of salvation. And that's based on, it offers that life, that gift of life, in many places in the New and Old Testament, especially New Testament. And just one verse that comes to mind is Acts 16, verse 31. And it says, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ, and thou shalt be saved. So we'll leave you there for now, and thank you for joining.